Hi, I'm George Pino, CEO of Commercial Brokers International, and today I have a great guest. It's Matt Aitchison. And Matt is a well-known investor, boutique hotelier. He also is a commercial real estate investor. He has a top 100 investment podcast. So I think there's a lot to learn from him. And, really, there's a lot of interesting ideas and concepts. And he's been featured in quite a few other publications as well. Please do take a look and check out his podcast as well. We'll have links for everybody down below at the end. So you'll have direct access right out to him. Now, Matt, you know, I know you've raised over 40 million in equity, and that probably didn't happen just overnight. And one of the biggest questions I always get from some of our investors and the people that we're speaking with or starting off is, how did you get started off? What did you do? What was that? What was the impetus to starting and then moving forward and getting into the actual investment side? And how was that? When was that for you? And how was that? I mean, did you always go in right out of college, knowing you were going to go into real estate and investing, or did it kind of just fall into it for various reasons from investing on the side?
Well, I knew early on when I graduated from college that I wanted to kind of be my own boss. I wanted the freedom and flexibility of being an entrepreneur. I didn't want any cap or ceiling on what I could make financially. But there was also kind of a really important box that I felt like needed to be checked if I was going to, pursue that path, and that was to be able to build wealth. And so real estate was definitely something that kind of checked a lot of those boxes. And I was interviewing at a bunch of different places right out of college for $30,000-$40,000 a year. And I was like, yeah, this is not aligned with the goals and the vision I have for myself. And I actually, crazy enough, found a Craigslist ad, real estate mentor seeks real estate mentee. I'm sure we've all seen those, whether on a bandit sign or on some, random website. This was back in 2010. And there were a lot of foreclosures in Northern California, which is where I'm based out of. And so I ended up interning for a guy for 12 months for free. And we had flipped, I think, over 100 houses in that first year. And I learned a ton of what not to do, what to do, and really got kind of exposed to investing.
Mhm.
And I got my start in single family real estate. This guy was clipping 50, 60, $70,000, a house. And I was essentially doing acquisitions and dispositions and running and managing all the projects. And I went, man, I think I can do this for myself. But at that time, 21 years old, broke, living at home, the normal story, right? Of kind of not having the foundation or necessarily the confidence to get started. And as I got in the game and got in the space, there was a quote that resonated with me: is be dumb enough to believe in yourself and smart enough to take action on your goals. And
Yep.
I lived by that. And that ultimately led me to my first flip, which I netted over $100,000 on at 21 years old. And I went, I think this is going to be the path and the career for me. And that was what got me into kind of the real estate investing space. And then I built up a real estate, flipping team and business on that side, and quickly learned that, I'm only as good as my next flip. And I really am still trading time for money. So I kind of shifted my model a little bit more towards flip two, hold one, which got me, holding single family real estate, which I then quickly learned that to clip $200 a month and all the time, energy, and stress that went into that, I'm going to need to go into something a little bit bigger, which that obviously
Yeah.
led me into real estate.
Okay. So it was more of an evolution than so much of a genesis. You really had an idea that came about. And actually, I want to delve a little bit back into the comment that you made, because I'm aware of it. I've seen it on some of your podcasts and also on your website and some other stuff. But the be dumb enough to believe in yourself and smart enough to take massive action on your dreams daily. Um, so well put, succinctly put. I think that was probably me early on. I didn't realize it. Where that's the benefit of youth, is the having the ignorance of not knowing that you don't know what you don't know,
Absolutely.
and but at the same time having the exuberance to go after it and push through. And like many things in life, hard work pays off more and will give you better returns than doing the right education or the right deal or whatever else, if you put enough time, energy, and effort into it. And I love that aspect of it. But I think that I want to delve a little bit into, um, what makes, in your mind, a good real estate investor? Because frankly, there's thousands of these videos out there. How to get started in investments, how to do this, how to go about it. For me, what I've seen, and I had this conversation actually with the other day with someone else, and they said, "Well, aren't you afraid of giving your secrets away and someone else taking them?" And my response was, "Well, first of all, the pie is big enough that you know my appetite, as big as it is, I could never finish that entire pie. So I have more than enough to satisfy me. But more importantly, it's not so much the secret sauce for me, it's the execution. And 99% of the people won't execute it correctly. So I can tell them exactly what to do, but 99% of them aren't going to execute it like I would or like you would. And therefore, their success rate may be a lot less. What do you see as some of the key traits for an investor to actually be able to sustain this? Because you've been doing this now for a good 15, 20, 16 years, since
Yep.
2010, right out of the last kind of downturn.
Yep.
You're a young man in your early 30s. What has led you to be able to do this and to accomplish so much, do you believe? What aspect, whether it's personality, education, whatever it may be?
I mean, I learned very early on about myself that I was never the fastest, smartest, or strongest, but I'm an extremely hard worker, and
Mhm.
I'm really good at building relationships with people who are a lot smarter than I am, and empowering them with a clear vision on and a common shared goal on how we can achieve those things together. And so I learned that early in my journey, and also I, had a lot of great mentors that I was very good at asking questions and taking action, and therefore it opened doors and opportunities for me, probably a little bit more expeditiously than maybe some people. And I was always a student. I still am always a student. I'm always looking for my next teacher. I'm always looking for ways that I can sharpen, the tools on my tool belt. And I really have subscribed to one mentality, which is the crock pot mindset versus the microwave mentality. There's a lot of people that come into real estate thinking, and I was one of them. I thought I was going to be riding on a private jet and, clipping $1 million right in, month two, just because I decided I'm getting into real estate. And I learned quickly on that this is a long, slow wealth building, get rich game.
Mhm.
And so just like the crock pot, you got to have a lot of the right ingredients, and it takes time for those to fuse together to create a much better dish than something cheap, quick, and easy in the microwave. And so that was kind of the foundation of what I, subscribed to and built my mindset around, built my team around. And then it was just consistently going, there's so many things I don't know. The quickest way for me to learn them is to fail forward and fail up and to take consistent action and
Mhm.
then do consistent reflection. And by consistently reflecting and creating more awareness, that's what I've learned from probably some of the best investors in the game is it's not always having the best answers. It's just taking really rapid action and consistently finding ways to reflect, tweak, and optimize going forward in that process. And over time, right, whatever ceiling you might have been banging your head up against now becomes your new floor. And then you learn the new rules of the game at that level, and you got to figure out how to beat the boss there, and you got to figure out how to break through another ceiling. And so that's ultimately the way I look at this is, this is a 30, 40, 50, 60-year journey for me. And if I consistently do the right things, not necessarily getting these lightning in a bottle moments, I've had a few of those over the course of my journey, at least in context to where I started and where I'm at now. But I really do believe that if you take small, smart, consistent steps in the right direction over an extended period of time, you look up and you go, man, I've actually made some really big strides over that period of time. And so for me, it's been masterminds, it's been accountability groups, it's been coaching, and it's really just been getting in the trenches and rolling up
Mhm.
my sleeves and doing the hard work and finding ways to continue to improve and optimize along the way.
Absolutely. I agree with you absolutely that, it's a lot of that's the hard work. Hard work, they say, will always outbeat education, unapplied, but, education and hard work will beat out almost anything. And that's what you're saying is that, and when I say education, I'm not talking about necessarily the the formal education, but it's the education that you're getting from your mentors, the education that you're getting from the people who've done this before. More importantly, and I think this is probably what sets you apart, if I may throw this out there, it's the one word you said that caught my ear was reflection. And a lot of people are always constantly chasing the deal, going after the deal, not looking at to how I can improve and actually build a career out of it. So there's a lot of people that are flipping homes that are doing okay. They're always going to be at that, I'm making an okay living, but they're not building a career out of it. They're not building a substantial holdings or wealth, which is more of a long-term play, like you said.
Yep.
But I love the fact how you were reflecting on things, whether initially it was flipping homes, that's great. But then you also realize it'd be nice to have, some passive income coming in as well, not just relying on that. So that, was to flip two, keep one. And that also will eventually build wealth itself. So I love how that concept goes in and ties very much in because I'm a firm believer in education as well. I've been doing this for a little while longer than you, and I say I'm always learning something new every day, and I love that. That's one of the things I love about this industry. How I did business 30 years ago is not how I do business today, and
Right.
nor will it be. Even investments, looking at it. So I think that's a huge give or on your part as far as what you think was success, because I think a lot of that combined to it, but I think probably the biggest thing is the reflection and the mindset.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to be willing. This
Yep.
industry moves quickly. You got to be willing to adapt and pivot, and really make the necessary adjustments. I always tell people, I don't need to be right. I just want to win. And
Mhm.
so that winning mentality is the best leaders, the most competitive people are always going to find way to push themselves in a capacity that leads them to getting the desired outcome. And for example, when I started holding single family doors and I quickly learned, man, I'm going to need to collect a lot of single family doors to get to my passive income goals. There's got to be a better and more strategic way of getting there. That reflection led me to completely shifting and transitioning out of single family real estate and over to commercial real estate. And my goal was, over the next decade, when I started this journey, I said I want to, get to $500,000 a year in passive income. Well, how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to have to collect a lot of single family doors, and I don't really want to do that. That's not a model I think I want to participate in. So, what is the model? And so, by getting clear on what the North Star was, I want $500,000 a year over the next 10 years. What do I need to do in order to get there? And as I broke that down and reverse engineered that number, I said, if I just bought one commercial property a year for the next 10 years that netted me $50,000 a year, I can execute on one of those. Now I just need to kind of reverse engineer what kind of assets in commercial real estate spit
Mhm.
off a net of $50,000 a year. What kind of markets are those assets in? What kind of brokers or relationships or lead generation strategies do I
Mhm.
need to learn and understand in order to go out and find those opportunities? And so that led me into my first shopping center, which led me into my first medical office building, which led me into my first hotel. And over time, I was able to learn, grow, and optimize my team, my systems, my processes. But it was really the North Star and the reverse engineering of that plan that simplified things for me. And once I was clear on what the plan was, it was easy to get in the trenches and start executing. I think that's the one thing that most people struggle with is they lack the clarity around what it is that they're really moving towards.
Mhm.
Because if you're clear, there's a model for anything that you want to achieve, and there's a plan you could create tied to that model. And most of us, entrepreneurs don't have an issue or challenge with taking action oftentimes. It's just mistaking movement for achievement and getting pulled in so many different directions that actually aren't aligned with their goals. And
Mhm.
that really helped me get on a path to take kind of like a 5 lane freeway and kind of squeeze it down into the fast lane or maybe 1 or 2 lanes that I knew I could really execute at a high level in, which got me further down the freeway faster.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's a reason why people always say in sports, keep your eye on the ball.
Sure.
Understand what you're looking for, understand where you're going. And I think that you're absolutely right there. That is a problem with a lot of newer investors or investors coming in where they may not necessarily realize what their actual the focus should be on, and they're chasing too many things, and it's getting spread too thin, as opposed to here's what I'm really trying to do, and here's what I'm trying to accomplish. Um, and that goes back to, I think, reflecting again. I think because that reinforces it, goes back. I actually had a conversation with a young lady um, earlier today, surprisingly, and she mentioned, of all things, vision boards, and she goes, "You probably don't believe in vision boards." And I said, well, I believe in vision boards in the sense of I think that they're a good reminder for those people that need to remind what they're trying to accomplish and do for their goals. And she goes, well, no, I believe if you just put it out in the universe, then that it comes back to you. And I said, well, I know that's the new age way of thinking, but have you ever thought that maybe vision boards, because they're constantly reminding you of what you're looking for, then you're more focused on that and you're knowing what you need to do, and therefore you do it, and then you actually create that yourself through your actions. And she actually sat down and thought and goes, I didn't think about it that way. I just thought it just happened. And
That'd be nice.
yeah, which would be nice because I have a whole bunch of little notes on my wall saying, new property purchase.
Yeah. Yeah. The law of attraction is a beautiful thing. I definitely am a believer in it, but I
Yeah.
also would say it's got to be paired with the law of action. And, it's one thing to have the vision, but without the execution, I mean, so many people have had so many amazing ideas. The
Mhm.
richest place in the world is the graveyard, right? Because when you think about
Yeah,
how many people have had amazing ideas or big goals and dreams, but they've never taken action on them, those go to die with you, right? So you really got to find a way to, one, crystallize the vision, but two, you got to create an action plan and get to work.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, speaking of action plans, the one thing unique about yourself, which what really intrigued me initially when we were talking about this interview, is the asset classes. I mean, a lot of investors go into an asset class and they stay in that asset class for life. It seems to me and it sounds to me that you've been kind of moving around depending on where the potentially the best, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'll ask you why you're moving around, but from single family, and you kind of answered why you went to single family to commercial, but why retail to medical office to hospitality? Was there specific things that you liked about one asset class that you didn't like about the other, or was it just all based upon the timing of the assets in the investment wheelhouse, where one asset class was down, one was up, so better to invest when it's down to catch the ride up? Or was it just, I think this is something I'd rather be doing. I prefer this, or it's a growth industry and that's why I want to stay in it. Or what was your methodology? What was your thought process between jumping asset classes?
I wish I had a good answer for you, but I didn't know what I didn't know, and so I was more of, and I've always been of the mindset that I'm more asset agnostic and market agnostic, and I'm more opportunistic and value add based. And so,
Mhm.
as I have found really good distressed discounted opportunities, those have really kind of led me through my journey. Now, I will say, as I've gotten a lot more deals under my belt and I've seen deals go full circle, I've really refined what deals I will and won't look at, what deals, I will do, what markets I will do and not do, and things like that. But in the beginning, I was just like, hey, this seems like a great opportunity. I want to get into commercial. It's opportunistic. There's some real meat on the bone here. I'm willing to do the hard work. I'm not looking for stabilized assets that I'm going to pay a market rate, for. Um, and that's ultimately what led me to my first, shopping center, which was a value add shopping center. That led me to a value add medical office building. That led me to buying my first hotel out of a foreclosure. So those were things that I kind of, just learned by trial and error. Now, over time, right, I have really learned, hey, I don't want to do these. I do like these. I've got a team, and from an operational standpoint, that I know that we manage all of my assets in house, so I know what we do well, what we built up systems for, what we have the capacity to do, and what we may be getting outside of our skill set and scope of. But that being said, I have, as I've built and generated, some more wealth, I've learned that there are some that are a little bit safer, and some that are a little bit less complex, and some that are a little bit more management and labor intensive and risky, like hotels. And as crazy as, that opportunity was, because when I bought my first hotel out of foreclosure, I was like, man, I can do this. I've been flipping houses, I'm gonna. And then I learned really quickly, like, oh my gosh, this is a living, breathing organism, 365 days a year, 24/7. I've got not only customers, needing things, I've got employees needing things. This is an actual management and operational business within a real estate asset. But I also learned that I loved it. It had all of the same components of a lot of the same components and benefits of, commercial real estate. But there was this third component, outside of the income and the tax side, which was the experiential side. And I'm somebody that I have learned through my journey that what is more important to me is experiences over things. And therefore, I like the fact that I was able to not only create experiences and memories for other people staying within my assets, but I was also able to enjoy those with my family. I was taking my daughters to my hotels. We are, enjoying the beaches and
Mhm.
the ski trips and the things like that, staying at my properties. I can't necessarily get them too excited to go, tour my shopping center and go in the liquor store and go get their hair done at the salon, but they love going to the hotels, right? So there was this experiential component of hotels that I fell in love with on the hospitality side of things. And that's really been a vertical within my brand that I've really leaned into. And it led to me buying, some partnership and ownership in a distillery and tying in a spirits brand into some of my F&B and hospitality components. So some really cool things that, my vision for success as I kind of got to a financially stable place in my life was I wanted to get to my deathbed and look in my rearview mirror and watch the kind of series of my life replay. And what I wanted to be able to say was not how much money or wealth I've accumulated or not how many accolades I've got hanging up on my wall or titles next to my name. It was going to be based on one simple thing. Can I watch that video and say, damn, that was a hell of a ride? And for me, I want things that, really inspire and bring that out and align with that goal and vision. And hospitality assets are one that, really do check all the boxes for me on that front.
Okay. So it's kind of like live with no regrets, or live
Yeah.
your life so you with no regrets.
Yep. And now obviously there's some diversification components that, I've got some of my safer assets, more stable assets, and these are ones that, have a little bit maybe more volatility, but also maybe some more upside to be captured if
Sure.
you are well.
Okay. No, that makes perfect sense. I mean, you got to, especially now with kids, and family and everything else, you got to be a little bit more, probably risk adverse than you were when you were 20 years old, 21 out of college. So, I completely get that. And that's actually a great strategy to go about it because it allows you the flexibility to do stuff that you're really learning to love and see on the experiential level. But more importantly, I think that again, going back to the education, adapting, rethinking, looking at that, I see this as a very common theme. Have you seen anything in the newest asset class of hotels that you might be able to want to put into some of the retail or your medical office buildings, whether it's an experiential kind of thing or something like that? Are you looking at that to incorporate and cross, some of the ideas that you're learning from one asset class to another?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the name of the game in commercial real estate, right, is can you generate more income, drop your expenses, create a better experience, whether that's for your tenants or your customers, and, increase your NOI to drive value into the asset, right? And so in the hospitality component in terms of our tech stack and, some of the experiential components we've looked at incorporating and working some of that stuff into our retail side, also on our asset management side and some of the operational things. There's a lot of good prop tech that has, really come on the scene over the last few years that, we've really found ways to, incorporate in terms of remote asset management, as well as, the actual physical experience that, customers and tenants are having on the ground at some of those properties. So there's so many different facets of, how you can layer in programming and look at the different components of your property. Obviously, it's got to fit the asset, it's got to fit the market, it's got to fit the experience of what, that particular asset is trying to accomplish for either your tenants or your customers, whether it's a hotel or not. But those have been some of the things that we've been able through having a broad variety of exposure to different asset classes to see some of the overlap and cross-pollination and potential dots that we can connect that, again, go back to, are we driving returns and value into the asset in ways that some of these things could be implemented in that may historically have not been explored in particular asset classes?
Okay. That makes perfect sense. It sounds like it's a very much a, a whole encompassing thought process, which probably goes back to your podcast a little bit. And I normally don't like to promote things or try not to promote as much on it's more about the education for me, but I think this is a worthwhile podcast to look at. It's a millionaire mindset because is the podcast, and I got that correct, right? I think millionaire mindset.
Millionaire Mindcast. Yep.
Mindset. Sorry about that. We'll make sure that in the words underneath, it's the right and the link is correct. But what I loved, about that also is I think a lot of what we're talking about and a lot of what we've talked about, even getting started, getting over, it wasn't so much. I mean, yes, there was a lot of people that helped you, just like there were a lot of people that helped myself or helped others out there that have made a career out of this. But more importantly, I think it's your mindset, mindcast, whatever, and it's. I think that's what differentiates yourself from the thousands of others that want to do this. It's, like you said, the graveyard is where the richest people are. Because there's all these ideas that went to die there, and but the thought process is that if they had the same mindset, we'd have all these great new products. We'd have great new things, great stuff out there. So a lot of this is just either the belief, or, paraphrasing, the stupidity not to know better.
Yeah.
And just do it, which is one of my favorite slogans. I think it's a genius slogan from Nike. Just do it. Because ultimately, for any entrepreneur, any investor, or whatever else, I can rationalize and make any excuse not to do anything. That's
Yep.
human nature.
100%.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it, and it'll come to you.
When you think about, let's just, and again, history and science continues to update how old Earth actually is. But when you think of the billions of years old that this planet is that we're on, and the very small timeline that we're on in this grand timeline, we ultimately are just a tiny speck of dust in the ethos of this world.
Little
And
blink of the eye.
in this universe. And so when you really think about how small we are, how insignificant we are, the wins and or losses that we have, it's crazy how we find a way to think that we're so important and that what we do or don't do means so much to so many other people. And as I've gotten out of my head, over the years in determining that I want to go after big things, and going after the small things and going after the big things are equally as hard, if not harder, to do the small things. You might as well go after something so massively big,
Mhm.
inspiring, challenging that makes your little timeline, your little blip on this, big radar of the earth, as significant as possible to you to maximize this experience. And so for me, obviously doing it with integrity, doing it with ethics, trying to add value and create a ripple effect along the way, just outside of my own benefit, but selfishly to go, I want to maximize the hell out of this journey for myself as well. And know that if I do that with good intentions, I got good values behind me, that I can, hopefully make some kind of ripple effect in a way that, feels aligned with what I want to see when I exit this world. And I think too many people get hung up on that, and they forget to go, man, let's just send it, right? Or as you said,
Yeah,
just do it.
just do it.
Those are things that I live by, and I always try and encourage other people to do the same.
Okay. I think that's actually the perfect segue to or conclusion, to be frank with you. And we've been on going at this for a little bit, about 30 minutes here. And I want to thank you for your time and your expertise and your knowledge, and more than anything, your actual mindset. Because like I said, I think that's the key to almost any true entrepreneur, any type of entrepreneurial relationship. It really starts with that mindset, and the can-do attitude. So, I want to appreciate that. If you guys appreciated what you heard, don't forget to check out Matt's podcast. Again, the link should be right now down below. And in addition to that, don't forget to give us a like and a subscribe if you did enjoy what you heard. So thank you all for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.